Welcome to the third edition of the Guru Mantra podcast. And here is your Guru Charan Kumar. Today, we have a special student guest speaker, Vatsal Kabra, who scored 42 points in the final IB exam. Yes, you heard it right, 42 points. And he is going to share all his fantastic DP journey, especially on TOK and extended essay. Vatsal, welcome to the Guru Mantra podcast, and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you for having me, sir. So, like he so kindly mentioned, my name is Vatsal, and I got a 42 in the IBDP. So, some of my hobbies, things I like to do while I was, in the DP program. I like to play tennis, go to the gym. I like to stay quite active, and you'll hear more about that in the later questions as well. I like to play the drums. And, generally just I like to spend time with family and friends, things of that nature. And I really like the sciences. So, I did an irregular diploma in that sense as well. And I'll be going to Cambridge to study natural science from this year onward.
Brilliant. Vatsal, first we'll start some of your journey with TOK. Can you tell me why are personal experience important when you selecting the TOK object for the exploration?
Right. So the personal experiences are quite important because when you have a personal connect with an object, you can write in more detail and you can connect with your object on a much deeper level than if, you took some random object of the internet or something you don't know much about. And naturally, as a result, you can explore the IA prompt much better. So if you take a prompt, something like who owns knowledge, right? And you don't know anything about the object in your own personal life, then maybe you can't draw connections. Whereas maybe if you took like some religious statue or like some verse in a book that is very important to you, then you can even talk about the implication of knowledge in real life, which is quite helpful when you're writing TOK commentaries.
Oh, wow, that's good. So now tell me, how can students identify the correct TOK object according to the prompt to optimize the TOK exhibition score, especially from your experience?
So I think many times students take unnecessary pressure, like we want the most perfect object. But as much as selecting an object is important, your commentary and your write-up should do justice to it as well. So a strategy I found helpful was that I chose my IA prompt first, which was why do we seek knowledge? And instead of looking at objects, because I couldn't really find any immediately, I thought about the question itself. So I was like, okay, why do we seek knowledge? And some of the reasons that came to mind were, okay, because we're curious, because we want to be better versions of ourselves. We want to expand our knowledge. We want to be able to express ourselves, more clearly and in a more sort of diverse range of experiences. So I thought, all right, if these are the reasons why we seek knowledge, then what objects correlate with them? So curiosity was this book about genetics that I really liked. To better myself and be more competitive, I chose my tennis racket. And for self-expression, I chose my drum kit. So instead of going from object to prompt, it can help to go from prompt to object as well.
Wow, that is a different one. So now from exhibition version, we'll go a little bit about the essay. Why is the presence of a well-written counterclaim is crucial for achieving an A in TOK, A or a B in TOK essays?
Right. So counterclaims are primarily their importance comes from the fact that they show you're a diverse thinker. So you can think from different perspectives, that you've actually gone deep with the topic of your choice and you've considered many assumptions. Because, we can all make claims, but there are very few claims, if any, that don't have assumptions within them or that don't have drawbacks under certain limitations or situations, right? They might exist in a perfect world, but the world isn't necessarily perfect. So you need counterclaims to sort of balance your argument and to show that there is a good amount of perspectives you're considering.
Very good. So now tell me, why is the structure of a TOK essay very crucial? And can you tell how a students in TOK effectively structure the essay for the success?
So your structure is important because naturally it's an extended piece of writing. It's not easy to read 1600 odd words. So you want something that has good flow to it, right? Something that connects, your next paragraph should connect with your previous paragraph. And you don't want to make it redundant. You want to keep adding newer points or newer arguments and ideas. So one advice I had gotten was, if you switch the places of one or two paragraphs within your essay and it still makes sense, then you're doing something wrong, because then your flow isn't correct or it's not the most optimized it could be for effectively delivering your message. You've not engineered it such that your message comes across in the flow you wanted it to come across, and your argument isn't developed very holistically in that sense. So you want to be mindful that every paragraph, every structure brings some new element to your essay. It adds value to your essay. And I think in general, people will follow introduction, body, conclusion paragraph. So like you do any of your English essays, but within the body, you have a choice. You can go A, B between your two areas of knowledge, or you could explore one area of knowledge fully and then go to your second. So that choice again depends on the nature of your examples and such. But in general, you want your flow to be something that you cannot replace, or you can't switch between paragraphs.
That's true. So now, could you discuss the most challenging part of your TOK in 2 years and how you overcome it?
I think most challenging is, well, initially TOK can be quite boring because you might be learning about certain theories, and it's like children tend to not really focus much in class because you don't know how it relates to your real life or how it might relate to your future work in the DP itself. But once you start getting into the writing of things, then you can relate it more with, all right, I have some work to do. But I think the challenging part with respect to your work is the subjectivity. Like in most subjects, there are certain, like, the rubrics are very well defined. In TOK, rubrics have wiggle room for interpretation. So you're not sure what one examiner will feel and what the other will feel. So you can get very varied feedback. And you can't really overcome the subjectivity, but the best way to do it is to stick to your views, to represent them very well, and to explain them in a manner where it isn't difficult to follow your arguments, neither for yourself or for the examiner. So you put yourself in the best situation.
That's a true point. Vatsal, criteria plays a very important role for the TOK exhibition or essay. So can you tell on what criteria you have selected your TOK essay title to score a B?
So the criteria I chose was, okay, does this topic excite me? So the one that excited me the most is what I chose. And it was about power and knowledge and the disproportionate relationship between them. And then I also looked at, okay, where can I contribute to this title? Like, do I have the required knowledge for it? Am I really interested in the two areas of knowledge that are required for this essay? And just my past experience. So because I liked science and I liked mathematics, and then it was all about knowledge and power, which is quite integrated within our world around us. So I thought, if this has relevance to me, this is something I'm interested in, so I'll take it.
Audience, please know Vatsal Kabra is an irregular student. Those who don't know, he's a perfect science student. And that's the reason why you can see he always referred to science throughout his speech. So Vatsal, now tell me two mistakes students should be clear on their TOK journey or to avoid doing the TOK journey. What is your advice?
For one, I couldn't come up with two, but I think the biggest problem is ambiguity, is that students don't tend to be clear of their own arguments or examples or what they want to put on paper. So then when you read a TOK essay or you read a commentary, you read it, but you don't come to like a proper conclusion, or you don't think there is like a very defined tangible argument that they're putting or some kind of conclusion they're giving. You read it, and then you, like, if someone would ask you about the essay, you're like, okay, I have no clue what I just read. So I think clarity of thought and clarity of what I want to put on paper is where students struggle, and that's something they should focus on right from the start.
Brilliant. So Vatsal, can you give me a tips for students who want to achieve A or B in the TOK? What is your personal advice to them?
Right. So I think achieving an A in TOK is quite hard. Primarily because of the subjectivity involved. So some examiner will look at it one way, some will look at it another way. But to achieve a relatively good grade is not so hard because you still have a rubric, right? So if you do meet those criteria, if you do go with the format and the flow, and you mention your claims or counterclaims, and your examples have certain relevance, then that is really what is in your control. So I think put your best foot forward. Don't worry about, okay, I have to achieve an A or a B. Just worry about, is this the best piece of work I can put? Have I covered all the rubrics? And then the grade should follow with that.
Excellent. The journey of the TOK is important. Vatsal, now from TOK, now we are moving to some of the questions related to extend essay. Before we start, can you tell your audience your subject you have chosen for the extend essay and a little bit about your research question?
Right. So I chose biology for my extended essay, and my research question was, how does age affect reaction time to light and sound in humans? So I looked at people from 5 to 60 years of age, and how that affected the speed of their reaction time to a light stimuli and a sound stimuli.
Very good. So what difficulty do students commonly encounter during their extended essay journey? And can you give an example and how did you overcome it?
Initially, the problem comes with, can I find a topic? Because extended essays and IAs are very different with respect to how much detail you have to put in the extended essay, the amount of work you have to do, the amount of factors and variables you have to consider. So initially, I was always in biology extended essay, but initially I was looking at auxin, which is a plant hormone, and how it affects plant growth. And my IA was supposed to be reaction time. But what I realized was I was much more interested in reaction time, and I felt more inclined and motivated to do that. So then I switched that to my extended essay. So, I actually didn't have a topic until quite late. And that's perfectly okay as long as you're, really motivated to do that. The other problem comes with motivation. So even if you find a topic well in time, but you have no motivation and, it's really a struggle and a pain to do it, then you won't want to do it, or you may not do as good of a job. I switched my topics quite late on, but I was really looking forward to exploring reaction time and, conducting certain statistical tests and seeing, okay, there is age, but then how does your lifestyle, your sleep patterns, your exercise, maybe any substance abuse, how does that also affect your reaction time, which I couldn't have done in an IA because of limitations to variables and how many experiments you can conduct. So then I thought, we've got a topic we like, and because we like it, there's motivation to really kind of explore. Because when I was working on it, it's not easy work. You still have to put in the hours, but you gain a lot out of it, and you really do want to do your analysis.
Wow, well detailed answer. Vatsal, can you tell me, criteria plays a very important role in the extended essay. So how did successful students familiarize themselves with the criteria of the extended essay to achieve A or B? What is your opinion?
I think the starting point is always you'll have an introductory session in your school. So your teachers should conduct it, any extended essay supervisor or your subject specific supervisor. And then once you have a brief idea of it, you should always read the guide. So read the extended essay guide, read it specifically for your subject, because each subject have different criteria and they have different weightages on different parts of the process. Like science is an experiment. Language extended essays tend to be analysis, or a business or eco might be case studies. I'm not entirely sure, but the nature of the task differs, right? So you should always read the subject specific guide, and based on that you can it becomes like a benchmark where am I meeting or exceeding expectations or not.
Wow. Okay, now how did students develop their critical thinking skill while working on the extended essay, and how did it benefit from the other areas of their life?
So for me, first I had to develop that kind of the prerogative and the decision to, okay, what topic do I want for my extended essay? So that took a lot of critical thinking. Initially, I was thinking about, okay, what if I work with bacteria and see what food source they grow best under? But that has certain like implications with respect to, testing or pathogenic substances. So you might not be able to use it in your IAs. Then I thought about plant hormones, but it was a fairly simple experiment. You're looking at, like, simple in the sense that my ultimate experiment with reaction speed was simpler in terms of procedure, but I could analyze more things. In the plant thing, I would have a very unidimensional or maybe a two-dimensional experiment. So there's critical thinking involved with what are the potential of your research question. It's not just is this a good research question? Is it feasible? What is the potential? What all can I analyze? Is there enough background information? Because you don't want to do something that is very well established, and you also don't want to do something that is not existing either, right? You want to find balance there. So it takes critical thinking for that. And then ultimately, there's lots of critical thinking for analysis and evaluation, where you have to look at every individual factor, see, okay, could this play a role? Could that play a role? Because sometimes I found that, okay, in some cases, maybe it wasn't the fact that people were getting less hours of sleep that was the problem, but their sleep was disturbed. Like they didn't have a consistent sleep schedule. So someday they're sleeping 1 hour, someday 10 hours, someday 5 hours. Maybe that was the problem. Whereas someone who's getting less sleep, but the same amount every day, was not suffering from the same problem. So then you have to go deep within those intricacies and variables and every data point you've collected. So that there's lots of critical thinking involved there. And beyond school, it just generally you become more analytical, right? You're sort of, I guess, less prone to lashing out. You're less prone to making rush decisions. You can take more time out. You can think through situations before you decide to pursue an action or a thought process.
Brilliant. So my question now, next question is also related to what you said. So it seems you have planned it very well on extended essay, but I feel as an extended essay supervisor, many students have struggled for the planning process. Can you walk us through your planning process from initial to final draft of your EE journey?
Nothing. So I wasn't very good at planning either. My problem was I got a topic quite late. So my struggles mostly came with the fact that I couldn't come up with a RQ that was either feasible or something that I was really interested in or something that could give me a EE worthy report. So in fact, I didn't come up with my RQ until like October of grade 12. So around the time DP2, so around the time our first drafts were due is when my topic was finalized and I started collecting data. So I struggled over there. But I think once I had my topic, then I had my vision. I knew what I wanted to do. And my supervisor and I kept in constant touch with him, which is a very important thing, right? If you stay in constant touch with your supervisor, then it's not just that, maybe they can let you slide a few deadlines because they know you're keeping in touch and you're doing the work. It's not like you're sitting idle, but also they can keep helping you, right? And then that rapport just helps more with feedback. It helps more with, this is where I'm at. And, do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm meeting certain rubric criterias? How is that working? So I think even when I was very confused, I kept in touch with my supervisor just to ensure that it is working. Like, it's not that I'm just being confused and somehow it's going to be March of DP2 and I have nothing to show for it, right? But then once you've got your topic, then also because I had like 2-3 failed topics, I had an idea of how the experiment and process goes about. So when I had the final topic, it was just very smooth. I just collected my data, did some things, and I already had some background info which I thought, because I was doing it for my I had it ready. So it was very haphazard, but you just stay in touch with your supervisor, take lots of help with respect to planning. Obviously you have to do your own work, but with respect to deadlines and planning, you take their help, and then you just do the work. There's no way around it.
Keeping constant touch with the EE supervisor plays a very important role. So time management is crucial in extended essay workshop. What advice would you give for effectively managing for others, DP1 or 2 students, their time in the EE journey?
So what I've found is, like many people will suggest, they might be your peers or teachers who'll say, do a little work every day. Like just do 15 minutes, do half an hour every day. But I don't like that advice personally, because if you've been given homework, like let's say 3 math questions, right? Or do like a blueprint analysis for English or read this article for eco, that's fine. You can do those in 15-30 minutes. But for extended tasks like TOK, like EE, like IAs, it like you sit down, it takes you 15 minutes to realize what have I done up till now, right? You like, because you're out of that groove, so it takes you like 15 minutes to realize, okay, what have I done? And then in 15 minutes you'll maybe like think of one thought and write it, and then that'll anyways get edited out, so you're not contributing to the final product. What I found is, instead of sitting for like half an hour every day, take out like 2-3 hours at least, like take out good amount of hours, and maybe once a week only, but then get work done, right? Because in those 2-3 hours you can take 10 minutes to familiarize yourself, and then you have another like 1.5-2 hours to just do the work. Whereas if you take half an hour, you familiarize, defamiliarize, and you have no time to do the work.
Correct. So now, what skill do you find the most important to develop in order to excel in extended essay as per your DP journey?
I think you need an understanding of the rubric, right? Because no matter how much you like or dislike your topic, if it doesn't fit the rubric, then you won't be graded nicely, or you won't attain the levels you want. And I think after that, it just takes lots of like curiosity and passion, because IB is unique in the sense that there isn't a prescribed amount of work, right? You decide how much revision you want to do, you decide the level of work you want to do, right? So you'll only achieve good levels, or like you'll only put in that amount of effort if you like your topic, if you think it's worth your time, if it adds to the knowledge you already have, maybe some course you want to pursue in college. So I think what helps is just having that sort of perseverance and like a very high expectation from yourself, right? Because you don't want to give yourself the slack that I'm fine by just getting by. I want to excel at something.
Totally agree. 2 common mistake, what do you advise you have to give to DP1 and 2 students to avoid in their EE journey?
I think again, like not having that passion, not having the will to do something at a high level is something that can be a problem. Like just approaching it as a task will mean that you only do the bare minimum, right? And again, with homework, whether you do the bare minimum or the maximum, answers are fairly the same, right? So whether I put in 3 hours of working or 5 minutes of working, I'm still coming to the same conclusion. But in an EE, where you have different facets to analyze, where you can conduct different tests, you can look at different variables, the more time you put in, the more thought you put in, the better your product. So you can't approach it as just another task where as long as I'm on the rubric, it's good. You have to think about it as something that is, yes, it is a task, so you have to meet deadlines, but think of it as how this helps me as a person, right? Like we talked about critical thinking, we talked about looking at all these different factors, and then it also helps you with writing, because ultimately chances are you won't do anything groundbreaking in your EE, right? But what perspectives can you give? How can you communicate it so that maybe you found some assumptions, maybe you found some more analysis. So it's like, I think a lot of focus should go on communication and your vision for the EE, because many people just tick the boxes. They don't have, like, it seems very sort of discreet and very disorganized. But it should be like one good research document, right, where everything kind of ties together.
True words. Now tell me 2 tips for DP students to attain an A or B grade in extended essay. What is your advice?
Think it's just what we've already talked about. Keep in touch with your supervisors, stay on top of things, prioritize deep work over long-term shallow work. Like a little deep work will give you more result than a lot of shallow work. Like I mentioned, if you do 20 minutes, 30 minutes every day, you'll maybe contribute like 1% to your final product every day. But if you spend like 2-3 hours in a day, you might contribute like 30%, and you only need one session. Whereas you'll need like 30 short sessions, and then you're frustrating yourself, you're frustrating your supervisors, and then you're saying, I'm putting work every day for E, but it's not like that's the only work, right? What you have to realize is you also have other subjects to think about. You have TOK to think about. You have your own, your own hobbies, your own personal life, which you obviously want to pursue and keep healthy that way. So you can't just make the extended essay the sole thing in your life and get frustrated. It's something you need to enjoy. It's something whose worth you need to define for yourself, because just saying I need to do it because it's an IB requirement won't that motivation won't last long. It has to be internal, it has to be an intrinsic factor. So those are important things.
Brilliant. Now Vatsal, we are going to do some of the last couple of questions related to general to the IB education. So right. What strategy and technique can student to stay motivated while studying for the IB? Because I have seen you for 2 years. I never seen you are actually in stress or demotivated. You always been in Takshila motivated, and I've seen you motivated others. So what is the strategy and technique can students use?
Right. So I think, again, like I said, people think of work or studying as just a task you have to do, right? And it's like if you think of it as a job, then it will get tedious or something like that. But I always looked at it as learning opportunities, like I get to learn something new. And one advantage I had was all my subjects were things I liked, like I didn't take any subject because I have to take it or because I'm missing out on an SL or HL or something like that. These were all subjects I was very interested in. So, and one thing that I really found helpful is to make like connections between the topics you learn. So maybe it could be like connections between math and bio. It could be connections between English and chemistry, and not just within school, right? You should make connections between your life and work, because that makes the learning, it not only does it make it more fun, it makes it like easier to remember, and it like stores in your memory better. So for example, we did lots of like ad analysis in English. So whenever I used to see billboards on the road or something, then like my mind would go to, okay, what's the color scheme, what are the kind of language they're using? So I would like connect my learnings to my real life. I think that so I think that works better than motivation, is when you genuinely look forward to the process, right? And I think many people, they sort of just say like, I'm studying because I have to do this in an exam, and then that's it, like you'll forget it after that. But it has to be a holistic process. It has to be for your whole life in general.
So now tell me, what challenges did students face during the diploma program? And can you tell me one challenge you faced it and how did you overcome it?
I think initially my biggest challenge was with maths. So MYP to DP is a big jump in general, but it's highlighted if you take math HL. because the topics are so much more, the focus on fundamentals is much higher. So I think the only way to overcome them is to stick with it. You just you don't drop out of the class, you stay in the class, and you practice a little. And I think paying attention in class is something that students should do more of, because like sometimes you don't pay attention in class and then you have to self-learn everything. Whereas I didn't do as much revision at home, but I always paid attention in class, so that at least the first time I understood it, right? And then at home I could do it on my own pace. But for someone not paying attention in class, you have to do everything again at home. So it just takes double the time, and then obviously you're going to get frustrated. So just sticking with it, paying attention in class, seeking constant feedback, staying in touch with your teachers, that's how you retain your sanity as well, and ensure that I'm on the right path. Because you don't want to be alone in the journey, right? You want to get certain reference points and guidance.
So now, can you share 2 insights into an effective study plan for the final IB board exam?
Right. So firstly, you have to identify your weaknesses and strengths, because if you don't and you spend more time on your strengths, because it's easier to study what you already know. So sometimes that can be like you double down on your strengths and then you kind of leave your weaknesses completely. And the examiner doesn't know your strengths, the IBs doesn't, they're going to test you on everything, right? So you have to be relatively comfortable with everything. And other than that, there's also, you have to strike a balance between doing concepts and doing practice questions. So for subjects like math and physics, they're heavy with practice questions, because that's how you understand how do you write your answers. But for something like bio or English, you want to look at content more. You want to look at, okay, what techniques, what terminology, things to that end. So from subject to subject, you want to find a balance between how many questions I want to do and how much I want to focus on concept. And in general, you want to identify weaknesses and strengths before you start.
Wow, that's a brilliant point. So now tell me, a mistake to avoid DP 1 and 2 students for getting a good grades.
So you should practice questions. Yes, they're important, but you should focus on having strong conceptual foundation, so that your revision in the long haul becomes easier, right? Like if I have a strong conceptual foundation right now, then I won't have to revise it for every exam or for every semester. I won't have to redo that topic. So, or like in general, you will have to redo the topic, but if it took you like 2 hours the first time, it'll take you maybe like 90 minutes and then 50 minutes. And then by like your finals, maybe you just need to look at like 5 bullet points and you're good to go, right? So if you have a strong focus on fundamentals, that's very important. And you should like have an upward sort of curve with respect to your grades. You should have an upward trend in your grades, right? Like what happens is maybe you study hard for one exam, then you don't do anything for 2 months. So you get a good grade, like a 7 or something, then you fall back to 3s or 4s, and then you keep like oscillating very heavily. That's not good. What you want to do is, even if someone goes from a 3 to a 7 in a month and then falls back to like a 4, is worse than someone who takes 4 months to go from a 3 to a 7, but they're only going upwards, right? Obviously, you'll have like minor ups and downs, but what you want to ensure is consistent progress. And again, this is like just some daily revision every day. You don't have to do very hard or lots of time. I didn't do that either, but pay attention in class, because then at least you're up to date with what's happening. You know what content to cover, how it's taught, how you're supposed to respond to it and learn to it. And then as long as the curve is upwards, I think you're in good hands. Don't focus on consistency over like long erratic jumps.
Correct. Now, next question, Vatsal, this is one of the important questions everyone want to know from you, especially all the DP 1 and 2 students. Tell me something dealing with academic and personal pressure in DP. In that one, how did you manage to get 42 points?
I think like from a symptomatic perspective, you focus on sports, go to the gym. Exercise is a well-known like sort of endorphin inducer, and it's good for mental health that way. But otherwise, one size doesn't fit all. Maybe some people want to meditate, some want to socialize with friends and family, some want to do other hobbies, cooking, photography, playing a musical instrument. So that's all well and good, and you should do it, right? Because it adds to your development as a person and someone with good character and experience. But again, it's symptomatic. You want to get to the cause of why you're stressing, right? Or why you're taking so much pressure. And I feel many times it's because people put pressure on performing and people put pressure on exams, and they only look at it from that perspective. I had high expectations from myself. I'm not going to be happy with like bad scores or like a lack of conceptual understanding. But I realized that it's not just for exams, right? Like you're learning this because you enjoy learning things, you're curious in general, this is also going to be taken up further in university. Maybe you'll do some work with it. You never know. Right. So I think problem is people look at it very isolated, and then it becomes like a pressure cooker situation. Whereas if you expand your DP journey to be a part of your life, instead of it being like, this is my life, this is my DP journey, if you like combine them somewhat and you look at, okay, so like when I'm playing tennis, I look at bio concepts or like muscle pairs. When I'm playing drums, you look at like sound waves, things like that. And it's not like you consciously think of those, but your mind becomes tuned to be more analytical, right? And it's not like you're forcing it. It just naturally becomes something. So even when you're in class, right, you can connect it with your life outside of class and vice versa. So it's important to like expand your experiences within DP to other parts of your life, and to not put pressures on like those few hours of exams. You want to like enjoy the journey and make the most of it.
Brilliant. Now I got to know why you are entering into the Cambridge. So my last question, Vatsal, this is a question. 2 tips for the DP student to stand out in the college application. Yeah? Because as you are entering into the Cambridge, it's not an easy task for everyone. So what is your advice for DP students to stand out in a college application?
Right. So this depends on 2 things: the college and the country you're applying to. I applied to the United States and United Kingdom, so I can talk about those. US, they want to admit you as a person. So they're looking at lots of like not lots of extracurriculars, but they have good emphasis on extracurriculars and doing them to a high level. Like it's better to do 3 extracurriculars for like months and years on end and at like a very high level, like sports on a national level or something, rather than doing 10 extracurriculars for like 2 weeks each. They want to see that you have good breadth, but also depth. So they want to see commitment. They want to see a good level of performance and competency. UK, on the other hand, they want to see you how you are as a student. So they want like high levels of academic excellence and drive and your passion with the subject. So that's where the 2 countries differ. Primarily US, also you have to write a lot more essays, and it's the admission rates are very unpredictable, because they look at you as a person, and there are like certain things with US admissions which are not completely meritocratic. Like they might have quotas for regions and things like that. UK, as long as you have good grades, as long as you're passionate about the subject, they can see that. They can see you're driven. They can see you have the right academic rigor for the course you want. And in general, like you're a pretty balanced person. It's good. So you should look at the country, and you can always write to admissions officers directly about, this is the course I'm looking at, or this is my profile. What would you recommend?
Vatsal, it's a brilliant conversation with you about your success, and all your experience will be a lesson for many DP students who want to achieve the final high grades. Your final words, Vatsal.
Right, no, definitely, sir. Thank you for having me. It was lovely reconnecting with you, and trying to. It's always nice if you can help anybody, whether it's one person or many. So, but I think, just stay focused. This is what I would tell everyone in general, is to stay focused. There will be lots of unknowns. Like I, in fact, did not know what course I wanted to do, which is why I've taken natural science, because it's broad. I still don't know what I want to do. I still don't know the subjects exactly what I want to do. So there's going to be lots of unknowns, but keep your self-esteem high, look forward to the challenges. I think that is very helpful. You should look forward to the challenges and look at them as opportunities, not as inconveniences, and I think in general, you should try to like look at this from a holistic perspective of, this is for me as a person. This is not for these 2 years. This is for how I'm going to develop, because, 17, 18-year-old is a crucial time. There's lots of change going on. So just try to enjoy, make the best of it, and, do what you want to do.
Thank you for listening to the Guru Mantra podcast with your host, Guru Charan Kumar. I hope you enjoyed the deep dive into all the tips and tricks about extended essay, TOK, and the IB points. If you enjoyed this episode, then like the podcast. Please share it with the others. Post about the postcard on social media and leave the rating and review. Thank you so much.